to take full responsibility for the horrible events of the last 24 hours, but you must understand. Our interest in their world was purely for the betterment of mankind. Everything has clearly gotten out of hand now, yes. But it was worth the risk, I assure you.
A first-person shooter is where a player has a perspective in first person holding a weapon or object. The first gaming example of this is Doom. Doom is a first-person shooter where the player is in arena-style gameplay with momentum and speed, going through arena-style areas, killing enemies that are around them. This area mainly consists of demons, but as the game progresses, more enemies with more strategic gameplay styles will be introduced to the player. As the game starts off, the player is immediately jumped into a cutscene where Doom Guy, as your character, gets up from a desk and immediately starts shooting enemies. This proportion of the game allowed the player to get grips with the gameplay and mechanics of the game in its most basic format, where you point and click at an enemy and slowly move around using the A, S, D, W keys. This allows the player to get to grips quickly with the controls while moving at a pace of the storyline, while the game provides in-game cutscenes to allow the player to immerse in the storyline while going on throughout the game. The Doom gameplay layout overall is very simple. You walk through a corridor into a room, activate a switch which spawns in enemies, therefore you have to kill all the enemies before progressing. Sometimes there are gameplay elements where there are platforming in between hand so the player doesn't get too bored of these two gameplay styles, while still having new fresh platforming techniques or movements around the map. This is also for the arenas. Every arena that the player comes across is very different, as in gameplay, movement, speed and enemy types. This allows the player to do different techniques and also move in different ways at the start of the game, therefore changing up gameplay style. When it comes down to overall gameplay, Doom has a very simple layout. The player runs at a speed while unlocking abilities along the way. These abilities consist of weapon upgrades and movement upgrades, along with overall perks for the player. This allows the game to be more enjoyable while the game progresses, unlocking and earning achievements and rewarding the player for overcoming those achievements. This allows the game to be fresh and unique at the same time while the game progresses, leaving the player not being bored and also motivating them and keep on playing. This also allows the game to be more developed in different strategy techniques, like launching missiles at enemies that are too big to take on normal bullets. Doom also has this major gameplay mechanic where once an enemy is on low health, they are able to perform a takedown, earning them health back and also taking down the enemies around them, rewarding the player for these takedowns and damage outputs with health, and also doing a nice cutscene at the same time, giving the player a satisfying edge of killing demons. While Doom is a very simple gameplay style of shoot, point and click, Doom also has minor gameplay mechanics where there's little puzzles where you have to locate keycards around the map, leaving an aspect of free roam and also exploration, but not too much that the player can't get lost or off the track. There are many times that this is occurring, but also this is just mainly padding out the game between arenas before going back into arena and shooting up a load of enemies.
Uh-oh.
Power up initiated.
Okay, don't panic. All right, stop panicking. I can still stop this. Oh, there's a pass. Okay, it's fine. I'll just hack it. Not a problem. A. A. C. Wait. Did I do B? Do you have a pen? Start writing these down.
Power up complete.
I don't. Okay, listen. All right, new plan. Act natural. Act natural. You've done nothing wrong. Hello.
Oh, it's you.
You know her?
It's been a long time. How have you been? I've been really busy being dead. You know, after you murdered me.
Another game that also has the same kind of mechanics is Portal 2. While the games are drastically different, they also function around the same genre, FPS. While Doom is more FPS shooting around the arena, Portal is more of a puzzle-based game, mixing the two genres together, which is puzzle and first-person shooter. Portal also starts off by introducing the player into a small room, allowing them to get to grips with the movement controls and looking up and down and around the room. Portal 2 offers a lot at the start of the beginning of the game, also immersing the player and getting used to the characters and forming a bond with the character at the starting area.
Hello? Anyone in there? Ah! Oh God, you look good. Looking good, actually. Are you okay? Are you? Don't answer that. I'm absolutely sure you're fine. There's plenty of time for you to recover. Just take it slow.
Please prepare for emergency evacuation.
Stay calm. Stay calm. Prepare. That's all I'm saying. Prepare. It's all fine. All right. Don't move. I'm gonna get us out of here. Oh, you might want to hang on to something. Word of advice. Up to you.
Allowing the player to get to grips and find a comfort zone in this unknown environment, while also being thrown into danger straight away by this character. This offers quite a unique and comical experience for the player when first starting the game.
I think this is a docking station. Get ready. Good news, that is not a docking station. So there's one mystery solved. I'm going to attempt a manual override on this wall. Could get a bit technical. Hold on. Almost there. Remember, you're looking for a gun that makes holes, not bullet holes. But don't worry, you'll figure it out. Seriously, do hold on this time. Well, there we go. Now, I'll be honest, you are probably in no fit state to run this particular type of cognitive gauntlet.
Portal 2 mainly focuses around core mechanics like grabbing cubes, placing them on the button, bursting a switch, place it down two portals to walk through or place an object through, or using momentum to go through portals. These are many mechanics throughout the game that is used in unique ways, like for example, standing on a button, then followed by picking up the cube, placing the cube on the button, and then opening the door. This is very basic gameplay mechanics that are introduced right at the beginning of the game to immerse the players slowly into this game's core mechanics. This is followed by button-based testing based off of the first game in the first gaming puzzles, but this doesn't last for too long after you find the area where the portal gun is, but then are transported into a lower area progressing the story and also gameplay, where you unlock a new feature where you can place down one portal. This is the introductory portal gun that is available in the first act. How this portal gun functions, you may ask? Well, the portal gun functions by one portal, meaning that the portal gun can only place down a blue portal while there is an orange portal fixated in the room in one location. So this means the player has to adapt around this portal, moving themselves around the area with using this portal, or solving the puzzles via this portal device. This is a slow introduction into the dual portal device mechanic, but this is the first basics of how the portal system works, meaning that the player can walk through portals and also move objects through portals, but cannot place portals through portals, only walk through portals or transport items through portals, if that makes sense. As the story progresses and your comrade finds more witty banter going on.
Jump! Actually, look at it, that's quite a distance, isn't it? Okay, you know what? Go ahead and jump. You've got braces on your legs, so you're all set. Although no braces on your arms, though, so you're going to have to rely on the old human strength to keep a grip on the device and, by extension, me. So, oh, still held. Still being held. That's a great job. You've applied the grit. We're all fine. That's tremendous.
There's more troublesome to have ahead after you wake up the main villain and progress throughout the story. During this climax in the first act of the game, you'll also unlock after the event the dual portal device, allowing the player more freedom to create portals and solve puzzles around the map. This also increases the map's difficulty the game's difficulty by increasing the puzzles within the game, while allowing the player also to get filled with the portal device while getting it by slowly progressing throughout the level, going up and down areas or getting over obstacles within the area of the map. This segment of the game also introduces a new character called GLaDOS, who also insults you comedically throughout the game. This has a nice touch as it gives the player a sense of motivation to beat this character and also know that you are in deep danger while going throughout these puzzles, knowing that the character is insulting you in a funny way, also leaving comedy progressing throughout the story to see what she will do next, and also for you to give you motivation to unlock more mechanics of the game and discover new locations throughout the game at a later date.
Oh, sorry. I'm still cleaning out the test chambers, so sometimes there's still trash in them, standing around, smelling and being useless. Try to avoid the garbage hurtling towards you. Remember before when I was talking about smelly garbage standing around being useless? That was a metaphor. I was actually talking about you. And I'm sorry. You didn't react at the time, so I was worried it sailed right over your head, which would have made this apology seem insane. That's why I had to call you garbage a second time just now.
Another gameplay mechanic that's also introduced into the game is advanced aerial faith plates, which allow the player to be launched in the air. Sadly, this does not offer much gameplay wise, but it does offer speed and momentum through portals when travelling at high speed, making the player react to fast incoming obstacles. Overall, Portal 2 is an FPS shooter that incorporates puzzle mechanics into its gameplay style, allowing the player to also have a familiar but also new experience within the genre.
Alright, going on 3 just gives you too much time to think about it. Let's go on 1 this time. Okay, ready? 1. Catch me, catch me! Ow! Ow. I am not dead! I'm not dead!
This is your plan.
We need to get to the surface to take out the gun battery. What, do you want to go home already, Sergeant?
Not before having a word or two with the orcs.
Is that wise, Captain? The Codex Astartes does not support this action.
Try to keep up.
Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine is a good example of a third-person shooter, where the camera is fixated on the character in a third-person view, mainly behind or allowing the camera to go around a 360-degree angle around the character giving a third-person view. Warhammer 40,000 is quite similar to Doom, as in the aspects of sort of style the game is based around, where you're locked in an arena, you shoot enemies, and you carry on. Though Warhammer is more brutal with this by throwing enemies at you at an aggressive way while overwhelming you but also punching your way through enemies. This style game is throughout. While the game cutscenes also allow the player to get introduced to the game, it's not as immersive as it is with Portal 2 or Doom where you're immediately thrown into it. Yes, you are thrown into the gameplay, but you're introduced by a cutscene that is non-playable, as both cutscenes where it was playable in the introduction of the game. This offers a new take where the player gets brief breaks during cutscenes after rewarded for progressing in the story. The gameplay mechanics within the game allows the player to knife and also take down enemies, same as Doom, regaining health and shields and also affecting enemies around a nearby area. This also adds a form of stasis to enemies, stunning them so they can't attack while they're in this state for a brief moment of time, available for them to be tagged or just get off your back. The player is allowed to shoot and also melee the enemies around the local area, but also have a range wide range of melee attacks within the facility. The game also has interactive environments such as gameplay progressive moments where the player has to move a turret around to explode enemy ship that allows the player to also progress in the story, but also allows the player to interact with environments such as gaining collectibles in environments, or also allowing upgrades within weapon caches, allowing the player to get new weapons and also upgrade themselves to make themselves more powerful against the opposing foe that runs at them. One of the graphical enhancements about this game is as you bludgeon enemies with your knife in close quarters, your character begins to get covered in blood while immersing the player in a sense of glory and satisfaction, killing their enemies and getting themselves covered in glorious blood. 40k Space Marine is very similar like Doom, is more or less a third person version of Run and Gun, but Warhammer is a more slow paced game and is more focused on the lore aspect of its universe, therefore staying loyal to its fans, but also making sure that the gameplay style is good enough for the lore around it.
The Anthems. Are you wounded?
The Codex Astartes warns against using jump packs to leap blindly into enemy fire, and for good reason.
Your days as a novice are behind you. Why do you still interpret the Codex so narrowly?
I look to its rules for guidance.
We all do. But there are also benefits to thinking for yourself, the others.
RTSs, or real-time strategies, are usually top-down viewed games where the player has to control units and hold a base. For example, today we're going to be using Halo Wars. Halo Wars 2 is a strategy game where the player has to hold a base, control locations on the map, and also gain power-ups to increase supply and income of power towards the base, and supplies and progression of their units. The player has to control units and armies to control locations and destroy enemy bases to win the game. This is the core mechanic of the game. The objective is to destroy the enemy team. Halo Wars' units consist of ground forces, vehicle units, and also air units. This format is usually used as a rock, paper, scissors technique, where infantry units counter air units, where air units counter vehicle units, and where vehicle units counter infantry units. Bringing it all back round, there are some units that can counter other units, such as an anti-air vehicle that can counter air more effectively, or have an infantry unit that counters vehicle units, but these are also core abilities to each hero. Throughout the game you can select different characters, and each character has their own unique units that can be available to be placed on the battlefield once unlocked. When progressing through the multiplayer match, you're also up against players, but when you're gaining supplies throughout the level, you also have to consist of population, controlling the amount of units that can be placed on the battlefield, which can be upgraded throughout using the field armory, which is the upgrade station, power, which is your upgrade source to upgrade units, vehicles and buildings, and also having supply, which is able to construct and build units, which is an in-game purchase along with the power. These sometimes can be one or the other or both, depending on the unit, such as the Condor, which is the most powerful unit in the game, which consists of both 2000 supplies and 2000 power, which is more of the end game sort of unit that will be spawned into the battlefield. There is also another thing that consists of tier upgrades. Tier upgrades is where the base is upgraded to tier 2 or tier 3, unlocking new units and also abilities throughout the game. Another thing that's also upgraded is leader powers. Leader powers is where the player can call in abilities such as airstrikes, local support or airdrops for a local area for support their units. These leader powers are upgraded throughout the game and also on the cooldown, and also cost power and supply when called out on the battlefield. Throughout the map there are nodes of power and supply that are scattered around the map which players can connect. The main nodes are the power nodes, which are little lightning bolts on the map displayed, but when captured they increase the supply value of power towards the player that have captured them or the team. This allows the player to gain an advantage over the enemy, while the enemy team have to try and capture these nodes back. But on the initial gameplay standpoint, when the game starts, they have to control these sentinels that are guarding the post by taking out the sentinels, therefore controlling these posts initially. Not only is the game about destroying the enemy, it is also gaining map control by capturing these nodes and also placing down bases or mini bases, increasing the population and also income that you can produce. If the bases and other bases being constructed, your main base could be pumping out units, while your secondary base can be gathering supply from supply pads and generators, which are used to create power and supply for the bases. When constructing elements around the base, you're restricted to 4 placement pads at the start of the game. If the base is upgraded throughout its life cycle, it can be upgraded to 7, but that's if the bases is unlocked to tier 3 or tier 2. When making a new base, you only have 3 slots available, therefore you have to upgrade to tier 2 to unlock the 5 slots again, then upgrade it again to tier 3 to unlock the 7 slots. Overall, Halo Wars is a very basic RTS game that allows the player to easily get immersed, but is mainly for console play. That's why on PC it is regarded as not very useful as an RTS or in depth, mainly because the game is quite restricted due to its platform that it was designed for. But the player can still get used to it and easily adapt to it when on console or on PC, as it is not a very good hard game to master or get into.
Garage constructed.
In conclusion, each game is made for each genre that it is meant to be made for, along with also applying to the audiences that it's going for, such as teens and adults. Many games have different types of audiences that is appealing to. For example, Minecraft appealing to kids and younger audiences for its friendly nature and harmless, non-violent graphics. On the other hand, Doom is applying for more old school, older generation gamers or teens, as is more gritty, gory, but also offers familiar gameplay mechanics. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Samuel Hayden. I'm the head of this facility. I think we can work together and resolve this problem in a way that benefits us both.